A little while ago, I made a video about the appeal of Himoto Umaru-chan and the relatability of its protagonist Umaru. This prompted someone in the comments to ask what I thought about Watamote, a series that I actually like quite a lot. Watamote is a very interesting show to think about alongside of Himoto Umaru-chan because both shows are effectively doing the exact same thing, but taking it in two totally opposite directions. In both cases, the narrative of the show revolves around the idea that we relate to the protagonist, with the key difference being why we relate to them. As I discussed in the last video, Umaru represents a carefree fantasy. The ability to just do whatever you want, whenever you want, all with basically no consequences, since she is also the brightest and most popular person at school. Umaru is supposed to be an idealized representative of the life you wish you had. The fantasy version of your own geekdom, personified into a chibi gremlin. You're supposed to relate to her because she loves the same things you love, and fantasize about being like her because it would mean an escape from the parts of life and fandom that drag you down. Watamote, however, gives us Tomoko, a girl with utterly crippling social anxiety. She desperately wants someone to like her, love her, or just be her friend, but cannot find it within herself to be the one to make first contact. To help cope, she's talked herself into thinking that it's up to others to approach her, and that beyond making some minor, trivial changes, she just needs to sit around and wait for acceptance to find her. This mindset essentially traps Tomoko in a loop of disappointment. The more she stays away from other people and won't talk to anyone, the more everyone assumes she wants to be left alone. The more she's left alone, the more she comes to assume the worst in people, blaming them for not coming to save her from herself. The only consistently positive thing Tomoko has going for her is the ability to lose herself playing video games. But her enjoyment of geeky things doesn't change the fact that whatever she thinks will make her life better never does. Gaming is there to be her escape, not her indulgence. And she genuinely wishes real life could be as easy to navigate as a work of fiction, and when it isn't, she doesn't know what to do, or what to change, or even how to change. Over the 12-episode run of Watamote, we see every awkward and embarrassing thing you can possibly think of happen to Tomoko, and we're constantly reminded that she's her own worst enemy. And this is where the relatability of the character comes in. Even if you don't suffer from anxiety, chances are very good that you have a personal memory of going through one or more of the awkward and embarrassing things that Tomoko does. You react to her because she reminds you of something very real from your own past that you were embarrassed by or ashamed of. You relate to her through your shared experience. Take me, for example. The very first disappointment we see Tomoko suffer is when she assumes that the simple act of starting high school will usher in this new era of popularity for her and be this sort of natural pivot point for her life, when in reality she remains the same standoffish loner she's always been and nobody talks to her for the first 2 months of class. I've always been kind of introverted, so watching this took me back to the various times throughout my life where I could remember missing out on things because I wasn't willing to put myself out there, not speaking up even though I had something to say. And every time we see Tomoko scapegoat other people to avoid the stress of taking responsibility for her own lack of progress, I'm reminded of all the changes I promised I'd make to myself but never did. The things I said I'd fix but became content to bury and forget about. Stuff that I just brushed off and decided not to let myself think about anymore. Because sometimes the easiest way to run away from the world is to just stand still while the world keeps going. And then you blame the world for not running in your direction. The difference between Umaru and Tomoko is the difference between fantasy and reality. One asks you to imagine how wonderful things could be, while the other reminds you of how things actually were. Even if Umaru's life is an ideal one, that ideal will never be as real to you as your own actual experiences, which are your bridge to relating to Tomoko. If you haven't checked out Watamote already, you really should. And if watching it makes you feel uncomfortable, that means it's working. I'll also link to my Umaru video here if you want more of my thoughts on that show. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.